Hello, everybody. Dr. Meri Crowley for Now is the Time. I'm honored to have Dr. Jerome Corsi on the call with me today. He's an investigative journalist, has written over 50 books, 2 New York Times bestsellers, and he now has a site up called God's Five Stones, and he's going into a new career also of investment banking. It's going to be an amazing interview, but before we do that, today's program is sponsored by MyPillow. Let's roll that commercial, please.
It's finally here, our second annual mega sale. This sale only comes around once a year, so take advantage of the best offers ever while you can. For example, save 50% on our Giza Dream bed sheets, as low as $29.98. And for the first time ever on TV, MyPillow mattresses and MyPillow mattress toppers, as low as $99.98. And you save 50% on our Lux Pure 6-piece towel sets. Regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, regular $49.98, on sale for $17.98. Wait on it, mega sale, only $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our second annual mega sale. But wait, there's more. To make the mega sale even more special, when you order right now, your order's going to ship absolutely free.
Anyway, go to mypillow.com, put in my promo code Meri, right in the middle of America, MERI. It'll help Mike Lindell, and MyPillow will also help my program as well. So anyway, Dr. Corsi, it's good to see you again. Last time you were on, we were talking about your book about assassination of John F. Kennedy. Yes. That had just come out several months ago. But recently I saw you on Nino's program with Craig Lund about Silicon Satan, and me being in LA, Los Angeles area, and working in the media in Hollywood. It's very interesting because I just did an event in San Francisco, 11/1 of last year. And so we've really been focusing on the West Coast here. So Dr. Corsi, you know, with everything that's going on, the Grammys, of course, just was just last weekend. And a lot of people were buzzing about Nicki Minaj and different things, what she was said. And of course, with Rob Reiner, having his throat slit from ear to ear, as him and his wife. To me, this looked more than just his son that killed both of them. And you working with Craig. Let's go over a little bit about what you think about this Rob Reiner situation, because I know I heard Craig talk about this briefly.
Well, I think, first of all, Craig Lund had experienced Silicon Valley and was this software engineer. He was on a fast track to be one of the mega rich entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley. And he went into the Luciferian nature of the practice that he claims, and I think is likely to be the case. You have to be a member of the Luciferian sect if you're really going to succeed in the Silicon Valley culture. And I'm finding now that his accusation, I worked with Craig, he was in that environment and got out of it and it survived it, and is now kind of in hiding in various ways, living a very isolated life in order to protect himself and his family. But he managed to abandon the Luciferian cult and escape and survive, which is very rare. You don't usually get out of that cult. Now, he was very reluctant to write it. He started, he stopped. He actually destroyed the manuscript at one point and had to reconstruct the manuscript. It was very difficult for him to relive the incidents, the horrible incidents that occur. I mean, it starts out being a very seductive life. You know, you have all the sex and all the drugs you want, and then pretty soon you're compromised. You know, it begins by being compromised. This brown gravy ritual, which I'm not going to really describe, but it's in the book, where it is the beginning of submitting to the dark side of sexual activity. And so therefore all the orgies and with drugs and human sacrifice, that done to heighten the sexual excitement of the people attending, are real. And cooking and eating babies and frightening the babies to mine their blood for drug effects. I mean, so when you read about Rob Reiner and the others, you begin to understand that, this is very likely a ritual killing. They may have wanted out or may have violated one of the rules, but you see this with many cases, where people are suicided, and they're not really suicided; they're killed, and killed in many brutal ways. And so, therefore, the dark nature of the contract you sign with Satan in order to participate is really a binding contract that you're not supposed to get out of. Now, what has made Craig's book relevant is the revelations we're finding in Jeffrey Epstein, in which we're now finding documentation of these activities. And people are shocked to know this is going on, but it's not just the Silicon Valley, it's Hollywood, it's the elite, global elite, the globalist New World Order crowd, the Davos crowd. It's the top wealthy. We find Bill Gates' involvement in it, which he now wants to deny. And we find a number of the people on The View involved in it. I mean, it's shocking how many people are being mentioned in the Epstein releases. But and Craig's novel is not easy to read. It has many dark passages to it, but he's not describing the sex in it to be pornographic. He merely wants people to know what's going on, what's the reality. And so therefore, for the average reader, this book is going to be shocking.
Well, I listen to it on Audible because I'm on planes a lot. So I listen to it. And because I have a film called Freedom Cry about sex trafficking, Dr. Corsi, I went to Thailand in 2017, and I had just interviewed Liz Crokin, and I knew a lot about trafficking, but I never knew what MK Ultra was. I didn't know about some of these rituals. She talked about Pizzagate, and my head was spinning because a lot of people, Dr. Corsi, don't think there's people this evil. And when I went to Thailand, I had a videographer, went to, Bangkok and Pattaya. And when I came back, I really felt, I heard the voice of God say to me, I don't want you to show what's happening in Thailand. I want you to show what's happening in America. So, we've got the Super Bowl coming up this weekend, which they say that the most trafficked people is on the day of the Super Bowl. And you also see on the halftime shows that they actually show oftentimes different comms that they put out there at these different, in particular, Super Bowl events. What do you know about the comms at the Super Bowl halftime shows, Dr.
Well,
Corsi?
the main performers are supposed to be here to, men wearing dresses, celebrating the LGBT lifestyle. And this is part of the gender confusion that is at the heart of a lot of the Luciferianism that's in Silicon Valley and the other elites. And then the pedophilia, which is another major part of this world, is glorified. It's part of the special treats of, what this bizarre, I think, perverted sexuality, which is being jammed on the American people through the Democratic Party and through the leftist press. You can hardly watch a television show today that doesn't include some LGBT character, and all the sitcoms are done to normalize these ideas of men in dresses, and sex change operations, and mutilation of children before they've even reached the age of puberty. So it's celebrated as a glorious deviation. Like, these are the true pleasures and delights that are reserved only for those who view themselves as having transitioned into the worshiping Lucifer as the ruler of this domain. And they believe that, they hate God, attacking life, depopulationists, but they feel that they themselves are entitled to enjoy sex with children. And what that does to a child psychologically is horrendous, that they are stolen from their parents, that they are then sexually abused. It's one of the major themes of God's 5 stones to combat this, to search it down and combat it. And I intend to do quite a lot this year fighting this and to exposing it. And I think Craig Lund's novel is finally now getting the attention it deserves, because what he's describing are behaviors which are almost so bizarre you can't imagine that they could be really happening. But every single thing he's written in that book is able to be verified. Even Pizzagate, which at the time when it came out, and the Assange emails, Podesta's emails, people dismissed as, oh, no, this couldn't be, and you were ridiculed for writing about it. But in fact, these were the code words and the code phrases for sex with minors. And anyone who understood the language or was on the inside knew what was being talked about. And it's real. There's a whole dialogue, a whole way of just talking about abducting children. It's a major business, far more lucrative than just selling cocaine, is dealing in children, and then ultimately dealing in children to sell their organs. So it's an organ harvesting as well as a sexual exploitation business, which involves children, abducting and abusing children. And it's horrendous to think you would ruin a child's life, destroy their mind, and cause them these kinds of horrendous problems. But when you see people in Hollywood that suddenly are suicided, or that you begin to, or that are so successful that it's beyond imagination as to how that person could have come from obscurity to be at the top of a field, it's again looked at as a satanic favor for the person selling their soul to this dark side.
Well, and oftentimes, as you know, Dr. Corsi, Hollywood would put out movies that actually show you what they're doing. In fact, it's almost, they have to let you know that they're doing this. So in some ways, they don't feel like the blood's on their hand. They told you, like, for instance, the Hunger Games movie. They actually do this. They hunt people. They hunt children. They hunt, and as hard as this is for people to imagine, this is what they do, and they show it in their movies and even in their music. And now with these EPSTEIN, the new, what is there, 3 million pages that was just released?
Just released 3 million pages, and they're being sifted through every day. Every day we're getting new revelations. We're getting new mention of new names. People are resigning their positions, sometimes in very prominent law firms or corporate positions, or because of their association with Epstein and their involvement in this cult. And it is a cult, and it's one that wanted to remain hidden except to the initiates. There was a special club, and so when you see these people arrested for sex parties and drug parties, which go on in Washington or New York or London or any other of the capitals of globalism around the world, you begin to realize that they're true. It's happening, despite how horrible it is. And when you read, how high up this goes, I mean, you see the royal family in London involved in it. You see our President Clinton, involved in it. Hillary Clinton. This is going to destroy reputations and careers. But when Epstein's living room or in his apartment, in a very prominent position, he has a picture of Bill Clinton reclining in a blue dress and high heels, dressed as a woman with his legs over the arms of the chair and him looking very chic. But, what is the president of the United States doing in this kind of a picture? I mean, it's a disgrace. And yet the abnormality of it is viewed as perfectly acceptable within the cult. The cult wants to make it acceptable in the culture, so that people who are never inclined to understand the Luciferian nature of these practices are, goaded into accepting them because they don't want to appear to be bigots or to appear to be hateful. So that these two women want to love each other, these two men want to love each other, you're supposed to interfere. So therefore, there is a process of normalizing these behaviors or actually demanding that they be celebrated.
Well, Dr. Corsi, I've interviewed over the last, 20 years, people like in 1982, one of the stories that broke, in fact, Johnny Gosch was the first, kid on a milk carton. When they say, "Have you seen me?" He was abducted in 1982 out of Des Moines, Iowa, as a 12-year-old paper boy. Eventually, his mother, Noreen Gosch, who I've interviewed her, she had been on America's Most Wanted 4 times. Never, there was some clues, but finally on Lisa Gibbons' show. And she said right on the air, saying, "Johnny, your father and I are no longer married. My address is in the Des Moines phone book. Johnny, please come home." 3 months later, Dr. Corsi, middle of the night, knock on the door. Noreen tells me this personally. She said, "I go to the door, look out the peephole, and hear the voice of my son, who's now in his 20s, saying, 'Mom, it's me, Johnny.'" And she opened the door, and he was with another boy his age and came in and sat down on the couch in the living room and said, "Mom, I was abducted by an elite pedophile network that goes to the highest levels of government, entertainment, and business. And he eventually escaped." And he goes, "I have to stay hidden because they'll kill me and they'll kill you." And so what's happening, that's what Epstein Island was, as you know, that's what the whole P. Diddy parties were. They compromise them so that they literally have, of course, dirt on them so that they can control them to do what they want them to do and stay, in their sphere. So a lot of people now are starting to wake up. And these 3 million pages, I mean, it's almost too hard to even think. 3 million pages. I mean, what are some of the names, Dr. Corsi, can you tell me that have recently come out?
Well, I mean, rather than go through all the names and many of them are new to me, again, I don't want to, necessarily get into things I can't personally validate and prove. So I'm reluctant to go through, naming individuals. But I think that what we're finding is that with the people mentioned, they may try a denial of it. I can mention certainly Bill Gates, because he's really in the news all the time on this. Bill Gates has a very strange history of having developed vaccines that kill people. He was thrown out of India for his polio vaccine. I mean, Bill Gates is not out for the salvation of the world. He's out for his own desire to kill people and experience bizarre sexual behavior. I mean, just listen to his wife, Melinda.
Yeah.
She's dying to talk about it and is being a little bit restrained, but she's sort of signaling that it's all true. Certainly, she finally divorced Bill Gates and couldn't take it any longer. She got out of it. But I don't think she ever really was part of the cult the way that Bill Gates is. I think Bill Gates was deep into it. And that's going to come out, and that's not going to be able to be denied. That, it's the nature of the, for this elite, which succeeds in money, is rich beyond means, is rich into the billions and of dollars, have no limit. They begin to think that they are now godlike. They've accepted Satan's rule. They're promoted. They get extraordinary success in their field of endeavor. and they feel like they are beyond good and evil. They use a Nietzschean term. They've now transcended into this new form of human being, which will live forever and be able to pleasure themselves with extraordinarily bizarre forms of pleasure, because they feel like they're entitled to experience what most human beings would never imagine doing. I mean, to be in these sex and drug parties and someone is in front of the stage is brutally killed in a sexual ritual to heighten the sexual excitement of all the others is an experience. I'm sure it's certainly the way Craig writes about it. It's so captivating that they want to do it again, and they don't want to tell anybody about it. They certainly want to hide it, but yet they feel privileged to be able to experience it. And so therefore, all the evil of it is part of the enjoyment. And that's so perverse that it's hard to imagine how somebody can enjoy a child who was stolen and is forced to do whatever sexual activity the person demands. And when you read the victims and their stories of their lives, you begin realizing how damaging this is to any person who's normal, does not want to participate in these activities, and yet is trapped in captivity of sex slavery against their will.
Well, now I've even heard some in the last week, I've heard some different voices, different podcasts trying to say that President Trump was involved with these type of endeavors, at Epstein Island. It's pretty much proven that he's not, but they just put it out there because I think they feel if they lie enough that people will believe it just because they hear it. What do you know about that, Dr. Corsi?
Well, Donald Trump was not, if Donald Trump had been involved with Epstein and the Luciferian sex and everything else that's gone on, it would have been exploited by the left far earlier than this. I mean, it would have been revealed in 2016 or when Epstein first started coming on the scene. I mean, it's been a process of trying to hide everything about Epstein, and now it's being released, at least in certain capacity. Okay, so Donald Trump got Epstein thrown out of, Mar-a-Lago for going after the underage staff. And I believe, these are pretty well documented that Donald Trump was not involved in the extreme sex activities that Epstein was offering. And you had to have a desire to participate in this in order to be trapped by it, because the average person would find it repugnant and would have no ability to comprehend why you would want to have sex with a infant. I mean, it's so upsetting to think about how you would destroy the innocence of a child for the pleasure of an adult who is, in a sense, become a Luciferian and is wild in their insane in their desire for this forbidden fruit pleasure.
Well, if you look at the Bible, and I know you have your site, Five Smooth Stones, which I want to get into, I basically just wanted for my audience to realize that, as Johnny Gosch told his mother, this is an elite pedophile ring that goes up to the highest levels. There's actually a book called The Franklin Conspiracy and the Franklin Cover-Up, a man named Lawrence King, who was actually, in the Republican Party. It's on both sides. It's not just Democrats. There's
Right.
Republicans as well. And, he basically would have these parties in Washington, and he'd have these kids in the basement. And Troy Bonner talked about it, where after the normal people went, they'd bring up these teenagers, these kids, and then they'd do different things to them. And Larry King would be photographing it. So, but then Troy Bonner was killed. So now he can't talk. I mean, I know a lot about that case, but George H.W. Bush was very much involved in this. And so we used to think the bushes were good until you really started going down the rabbit hole. But we're God is exposing things. And now tell us about this Five Smooth Stones, Dr. Corsi. What is that website about?
Well, I created it, to expose the lies and the sickness at the heart of this evil, which is political, and it has captivated the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party at one point was a communist party. What's gone beyond that to be an insurrectionist party that wants to destroy America, wants to depopulate the world. They feel like they're entitled to special privileges because they've transcended into this demonic state of kind of illusion, hysterical, believing that they are capable of achieving anything and they have a right to achieve anything, regardless how evil it is. And the evil heightens their pleasure, and so therefore they're the privilege of engaging in this bizarre sex is very captivating, because the fact that it is so evil and that what's being done is so perverse that there is evidently, from the people who participate in it, a heightened sense of sexual enjoyment or pleasure out of it that is only achievable by those who have abandoned traditional mores. And this is where you get, that there's this pleasure is more extreme and that one's more extreme. Human beings bore easily. And so after you've done X, you cross that frontier. Well, now it's easier to go to the frontier of crossing Y. And after you've done that, well, then you'll cross any frontier. And the moment you don't want to do it, you'll be killed.
And that's what Craig had to do, because I've read the book or listened to it on Audible. It got to the point where when he saw that they wanted him to do something to a baby, he just couldn't do it. He ran. He had to hide and basically go off the grid, as you said. But looking back, if you look at even the Bible with the altars of Baal and Molech and Ashtoreth, this is something that's gone on throughout history. But God now is coming to this point where he's going to judge it. And if Satan, Lucifer, thinks that they can win, in the Bible, it talks in Revelation that there's a scripture that when we see Satan, they're going to go, is this the one that made the nations to tremble? Because there is a great awakening that's happening right now. And this is being exposed. And COVID was one of the things that started to open it up. Dr. Corsi, when COVID happened, God spoke to me, because I am in the ministry too, as well as a journalist. And I heard him say to me, COVID-19 is Christ overcoming victory in disease, Psalm 19. And he said the kingdoms of this world are now going to become the kingdoms of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So we're going to see the tables turned on the enemy. And he told me the greatest movies, the greatest music has yet to be released. I believe we're at that point right now, that everything that can be shaken is being shaken. And as hard as it is for many of you to listen to what Dr. Corsi and I are talking about, we have to expose what's going on, because what they do to the least of these, they do unto the Lord, to his children. And we are going to see the exposure. And that's what's happening with these 3 million pages that are being released, plus a lot more. And so we're out of war. I mean, I believe, at the beginning of this war, Dr. Corsi, and you have 50 books that you've written. You have been doing a number of things and fighting. They've tried to call you a conspiracy theorist. I mean, when did you first, just for the record, when did they first start calling you a conspiracy theorist? What book was it that you wrote?
Well, that started shortly after I wrote, co-authored with John O'Neill, the Swiftboat book, Unfit for Command. The Swiftboat by Speak Out Against John Kerry. That was in 2004. And that was my first real exposure on the national scene in writing books of politics that were so impactful. And the book was largely, I think, responsible for John Kerry losing the 2004 election as president. But the fact is that the left has moved into this crazy space where all of the ideas are wrong. All of the ideas are lies. We also see it with regards to the climate change movement. You know, we're not getting warm, so warm that we're all going to burn up. In fact, we're having a very cold winter this year. And I'm in North Carolina right now. We've had snowstorms that have not been seen in North Carolina for 20 years or more. But the thing I want to point out is that, when you see someone who is, for instance, an athlete, and they immediately excel in these extraordinary capabilities and become famous as a result of it, well, that's, very likely and very possibly one of the requirements of, you're only going to have that success if you become a Luciferian. You're only going to not miss a basketball shot, no matter how far away from the court how far away from the hoop you shoot the remarkable three-point ability. Well, again, always these kinds of things strike me as saying, okay, well, someone who succeeds that remarkably for no apparent reason could very well be being assisted by these supernatural negative forces because they've gone into the cult. This will be the rewards. I mean, in the Bible, Satan takes Jesus and shows him the world, says, all this can be yours. And Jesus said, what does this benefit me? If, this is just material stuff. It has no value really. And yet it's the seduction that is the prize for those who decide to pursue this evil course and worship it. So they begin to worship money. They begin to worship the bizarre sex. They begin to worship, their ability to manipulate the world so they always succeed.
Well, and it's like in Hollywood too. Many of the people that we've seen come up to, mega stardom.
Right.
Most of those people, as hard as it is, have literally bowed and taken the deal.
Right.
One person now that's coming to my mind, Anne Heche. I interviewed her mother years ago at the Natural Religious Broadcasters in the Denver area. And Anne Heche, was pretty much heterosexual. She was at a party, and Ellen, there was almost like a spirit that hit her, and they became this item, eventually got married. But then she left her and got married and had children. But she was doing a movie on trafficking. And I know you probably saw it. Remember where she got in that car accident? She was in a body bag and she tried to get out of the bag and then she was pushed in it. Did you see that, Dr. Corsi? Yeah.
Well, look, you also see, the suicides or the deaths or the bizarre, disappearances and accidents suffered by these elite who do try to escape, who do decide they want out. Okay, so suddenly if you want out, then everything's withdrawn from you. Your credit cards don't work, your bank accounts are gone, you're left wrecked and ruined, your life is destroyed. And if, depending upon how much punishment the Luciferians want to give to you, they'll kill your children in front of you in a brutal way, make you watch it. Rape your wife and mutilate her, make you watch it. The punishments and the retributions here are severe. And you see, someone who has reached stardom and they have these, red handkerchief incidents where they're suddenly commit suicide in a way that is, red scarfed. The red scarf is left there, and is an indication that they didn't commit suicide, that they were hung and then made it look like they committed suicide. So a lot of these cases of the rich and famous suiciding are retribution because they suddenly got out of favor with the Luciferian cult. And clearly, when you're in it, you don't want to do that. Like you say, this son who comes home and says, "Mom, I'm being chased by this international conspiracy or international, child dealing." That's real. That kid is scared for his life, and will likely be hunted down and killed.
Well, so Dr. Corsi, I know we only have about 10 more minutes left. As I always try, God always has me lead people. I know that it was probably hard to hear some of this, but we've heard different statements saying there'll be a day they won't even be able to walk down the streets. The days are turning, and I know that there's a great awakening of the culture coming. God spoke to me several years ago, and he said there's going to be a greater move of God coming than any movement known to man, including the Jesus movement. I have a history of revival in the church where literally the culture shifts, not just people start going to church. It's about the culture shifting. After the Reformation, with Martin Luther, came the Renaissance, where the greatest paintings, the greatest poetry, the greatest art came because God's a creator, and he's the creator of all things. The only thing Satan or Lucifer can do is copy. He can't create. And so, as we
and their lies, always the left, or which has embraced this culture, is lying. They said a man can have a child, a baby, a man can have a period. It's nonsense. It's a joke. They can't tell you what a woman is. I mean, they become almost like they've lost their minds to the average person. Or climate change, again, which is another one of the theories which was designed to stop using hydrocarbon fuels so millions of souls could be harvested for Satan, and population decreases, which would deny people the food they need to survive. Saying we need to have nuclear wars and kill billions of people. They don't care. Listen to the various advocates and authors for this cult, and first of all, they're lying to you. Secondly, their ideas don't work. Electric vehicles, as soon as they're not mandated and as soon as there's no tax advantages, the electric vehicle market's going to die. It's going to vaporize and be gone. Wind and solar are going to be another Solyndra, and only available, worthwhile for people who stole the money with projects that failed. So the lying is at the heart of the deceit, and you have to embrace that lying and believe it in order to continue to be professing the rule of Satan, really of Lucifer, and on earth.
Well, Satan, it says in the Bible that he's the father of lies.
Right.
But the father of lights is God the Father, who's created all things. And he is going to Satan, basically he just tries to lie to people, that to these Luciferians, that they can live forever, but they will die. They won't live forever.
Lucifer in Latin is the bearer of light. And that's it. Satan, or Lucifer, wants to present himself as the bearer of light, and it's all a lie. It isn't really light. Okay, it's the illumination that comes from the evil activities that are engaged in. It's a dark light, and it's a lie. The idea of getting people in the streets all worked up over preserving the freedom of illegal immigrants who are vicious criminals, raping and randomly killing people. And, but again, the signs of who are in this cult or leading the cult are enormous success, without any, and sudden success without any apparent reason for it.
Right. Like you can see, like Lady Gaga. There's a number of people we could go down the list. Well, Dr. Corsi, you told me are branching. You're still going to write, but you're branching off also into a new venture. What is that?
Well, I've had a financial services career. I varied my life. I've had multiple careers. I was at the universities first part of my life and did a lot of federally funded research, including on political violence and terrorism. And then I went into politics after I wrote on command. I had a career there. And so therefore my life has changed. Now I'm wanting to go into investment banking. It's my second financial services career. And what I'll be doing is financing companies that are truly looking for wellness, that are truly looking for putting into place true protection, true societal security measures that work and catch and bring to justice these evil people who are violating God's law. So I want to finance companies that are in the mega and the Make America Healthy Again tradition, and that's what I'm going to focus on.
Well, Dr. Corsi, what are the websites that people can follow you at?
The best one is God's Five Stones, G-O-D, no apostrophe in the S. You spell out the word five, F-I-V-E, and stones is plural, godsfivestones.com.
Yeah, godsfivestones.com. Let's put that up on the screen, godsfivestones.com. And, lastly, as we close today, I know you have another, interview just in about 10 minutes. But, as the people are listening, and, one thing I want to say, God speaks to us. Whether people think, well, I've never heard God. Well, first of all, yes, you do. He says he speaks to you in a still small voice. There's three voices. You hear your own voice. You hear the voice of the enemy, because he's always out there trying to tempt. But God's voice is a still small voice. And God spoke to me several years ago, Dr. Corsi, and he said, tell the men in particular, because it's the men are the ones that usually will go out and look for, these, women, that are being trafficked. Most of these women do not want to be sex workers or whatever. And he said, tell the men they're not a pimp, a pirate, or a pawn, but a prince and a king. And he said, tell the women they're holy, not hoes, because God created male and females, and he created, intimacy, in marriage, as a union, not just for procreation, but to show the union of the two. And the perversion of the Baphomet is both a male and female. And so that's the perversion of the satanic realm. You cannot reproduce if same-sex marriage. There's no way. And the children will all be messed up. The family will be dysfunctional. But God created the family. So I know that there's going to be a great turnaround, and we're going to see a great move of God. I know it because I've heard it, and I believe that's going to happen. And that's one of the reasons that he's called me to be a voice, because we're at that door of a great awakening. Usually it's always the darkest before the dawn, and we need to wake up the culture, and that's what we're doing. So last couple of statements you want to make. I believe that people are listening to this, Dr. Corsi. We really honor what you've done, who you are, and being a voice of truth. And I know you've been, have they ever tried to take you out, Dr. Corsi?
Well, I always say in the end, God always wins. God did not create this experience so Satan wins. Satan knows he's lost. He's read the book too. But Satan is going to take as many souls as he can and pervert as many souls to hate God. And the hatred of God is what's at the center of all this evil. And the evil is horrendous. So that, we got to know that fighting it is what we're missioned to do, because in the end, God always wins, and God will win here too.
Well, looking at, it says they overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. And that's what Hollywood is, moving stories. And even looking at the Grammys, when Jelly Roll, who had been 500 something pounds, he even said that he was a despicable human being, and God brought a woman into his life that literally told him about Jesus, and his life changed. He's lost 300 pounds, and up on that stage at the Grammys, It wasn't political. He just said, Jesus. He just called out to Jesus. And so it says, call upon him in times of trouble and he will show you great and mighty things. So as I close this out to you watching, that hearing how dark this is, there is one who is the light of the world, and that is Jesus. And if you call upon him, that he will answer you, and he will save you, he will redeem you, and he will restore you. Just like Craig Lund, he left when he saw just how despicable it really was, and he came to know Christ. And he's a follower of Christ, and he's a truth bearer. So even the book Silicon Satan, which I'll have a link below that you can click on. I'll be interviewing Craig next week. But we have to pray for people like Craig and for Dr. Corsi because they're truly speaking for truth in the midst of a very perverted and dark nation and generation, which is going to turn to light, because I believe we're at that time of a great awakening. So thank you, Dr. Corsi, for coming on today. God bless you. We're going to continue to pray for you. You can go to my website, mericrowley.com. We're actually here in Hollywood. God told me, Dr. Corsi, to build a studio to rival Disney and call it Destiny. So we're just doing what he's called us to do. And we're fighting the good fight of faith. And I believe we're going to see great shifting, but we have to continue to stay, pray, and obey. So God bless you. Thanks for watching. Please share this with as many people as you can. Subscribe, follow, and stay the course. Thank you for coming on, Dr. Corsi. We honor you. Thank you for all you do. God bless.
Okay, God bless. Thank you very much.